All right, it's exactly 1 minute after 8, still on the AM show. I'm talking leadership next. In fact, we've been talking a lot of leadership, but we still criticize that we do not have very effective leaders. If you look at the fact that we're faced with Ebola here on the African continent, particularly in West Africa, our leaders are still going around seeking for help. It looks like we're helpless without other people extending a hand to us. So I'm talking leadership next with Mr. Samuel Biofei. He's consulting director at the Center for Strategic Leadership. And also James Afado is public relations officer at the UPSA. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for your time.
Good morning. Good morning.
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what you've been able to identify. What seemed to be our problem when it comes to leadership?
When it comes to leadership, let me in the first place put something right. Is the Drolo Center for Strategic Leadership situated within the University of Professional Studies.
Okay.
When it comes to leadership, the problem basically is not with the leadership itself, but how to use what leadership stands for to champion the cause of a vision of a particular entity or organization or a nation. So the problem is not with leadership, but it is how to use it and who to do that. And do that effectively to champion the cause of a particular entity or a nation.
Is it too difficult for us to do?
I don't think it's difficult. It's just that we don't know how to go about it. For instance, you're talking of Ebola. You're talking of cholera in Ghana. You're talking of people keep talking about poverty as a problem with Africa. Why is it that others are doing it and they are doing it effectively? Why should cholera kill people? Cholera is filth. And if the people who are supposed to make sure that filth is not there, so it will kill people, are not doing it effectively and strategically, it won't work.
Yeah. James, you're very young, so I've got to ask you, what are we learning as young people with regards to leadership? What are they teaching us and what are we copying?
Sadly, Mama V, I would say we are not learning much. Because you can only learn when there are very good examples that you can fall on for your knowledge and your development. But as we speak today, we do not seem to have any good example out there for young people like myself to learn from in order to develop myself to become a leader. And that is what the problem is. Because we have a generation of leaders, both in academia, in politics, in religion, who for 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago have gone through a system of education that's, by all standards, is far better than what we're getting today. They have been given everything free of charge.
Yeah.
At that time,
scholarship,
yeah,
free education.
at that time. Now, fast forward 30, 40 years, people are having to pay for education. In addition to that, the content that is being delivered is not the content that will prepare us to take our various countries on the continent to the next level. And so there's not much to learn, really.
And that's really sad if you look at it. But Mr. Fair, are we talking about political leaders?
If we are talking
because we've got fantastic leaders in other areas, except that bring them to the governance level, and then you see the politics in them.
Let me not say politics, but it cuts across every facet of our society. And I have traveled, I've been on conferences with some of our leaders, African leaders. And they go, they come back, it's the same thing. So it's not a question of only the the political leaders. It cuts across every area of our endeavor.
Which one of them are we having to suffer from the most? I mean, isn't it the political leadership that is so obvious?
Okay, let me bring it down here. What is making the waves today is that a medical doctor, who is supposed to be a leader, a medical doctor, is that person a political leader? No. Okay, so I mean that is why I don't want to pin it down to the political leaders alone. It cuts across every area, but we will say that they are the people who have been given the mandate and they have been made to take over and manage the whatever is allocated to the general public. So they are the people we'll be looking at. That is why most often when we are talking of even corruption, we look the direction of political leaders. But I think, yes, if we are failing, then we'll be looking there, because we all expect that they are the people who will make sure that they drive the boat.
Okay. Just I want to ask where we should begin the correction from. But then again, you can bring up a child from the home, teach the child everything from the church. They are fantastic, but let them rise through to a certain level, and then you see the rot in them. So where do we correct it from?
Mama V, there are some exceptional cases around that people can look at and say, oh, if I have the opportunity to serve in public office, I'd like to transfer that knowledge, that skill, that experience from private sector to
and they say
public
it's not so easy, because you're working with a team. You're not working alone.
Exactly, and that's where I'm coming to.
Okay.
So you want to transfer that knowledge to public office. Okay. Now, what we see on the continent and in this country is that no matter how effective someone is in the private sector as a leader, puts them in a ministry or in a government agency, and he has to work with people who have spent considerable amount of their professional life in those offices, and all they know is the lackadaisical attitude to work. Or if they have to deliver a service to the public, what can I do in order to frustrate the consumer or the user of that service so that something is put on the table? Now, if we have a caliber of people who think that I must frustrate other people's efforts in order for me to benefit from the system, then we have a huge problem. That is not all. I believe that leadership is not, you're not born to be a leader. You learn along the way to become a good leader. But our educational system is so structured in such a way that whatever we are taught does not really allow us to pick up the skills that we need in order to survive in the corporate environment.
But there are a lot of private institutions now. Pardon? There are a lot of private institutions now. There are a lot of other places where you can pick up stuff. So I thought that we were moving away from that stiff, this is what we are learning, and that's about it. We're not thinking about what is current.
Okay. I don't know how many of the institutions that you have had
opportunity
the
University of Professional Studies, for instance.
Exactly. I'm coming to ours. I'm coming to ours. We know that there is a huge need for the development or for a deliberate policy to develop leaders for various sectors of the economy. And so one of the things that the University of Professional Study is doing is to have develop courses that enable the students to have a holistic development, both in the academic side of things, as well as in the skills that you need in the world of work.
Okay. Can
We
I
do
ask
that.
you to just hold your thought right there
Okay.
because I want to build on that with Mr. Fair.
Okay.
Mr. Fair,
Yeah.
do you think that even if you were to teach, you know, like what James is saying in the classroom, teach them.
Which I teach.
Okay. Do they take it? I mean, sometimes it's just to grab it and pass the exam, and then that's it.
Well, I think you've hit it right on its head. But the thing is, let me go back to James's analogy. Every organization and their culture. So, you go to the ministries, and right when it is 5 p.m., you see people packing and going home. Mm-hmm. You go back to the private sector. With the private sector, you have to deliver. You have timelines, and that is the culture. So what do we do? That is why strategic leadership is important here. The mindset of the people, you make sure that change must take place. And if it is change, then the right skills must be applied. You give them the right tools to work. And that is a problem. Without it, we will have problems.
So what do we do because once he was talking about people frustrating the process so that they can benefit from it, I was thinking sometimes people even want to frustrate you, the new leader, who have been if you've been put there, people want to frustrate your efforts. And they would usually say, well, he thinks he knows better than everybody else. We'll show him that we've been here 15, 20 years. And he came last, he will leave before us. How do you overcome all those challenges? Because that can be really difficult.
Is it Mama Gan or Mama Ivan?
Mama V.
Mama V, are you a prophet? I think that you are using me as a case study. I moved from the University for Development Studies. And
UDS?
UDS. And came to then IPS when we were doing all professional courses. And I came with a background of academia. So I wanted things done that way. And everywhere I was going, and it was just at the time the IPS was going to go into academics and combining academics with the professional courses. So I decided to bring whatever experience I had to bear on the programs, on everything. And everybody saw me, my colleagues saw me as a threat. And we used to have senior members' common room. I couldn't go there for a whole year because everybody thought I was the odd one who wasn't conforming to the status quo. So it was a big problem. But with time, when they realized that there were changes and I was effective in whatever I was doing, they started towing the line. That is why if you go to the University of Professional Studies, Accra, now it stands tall.
But
so somebody must do it, you know,
irrespective
of the challenges. And I tell you, I came to meet some people who were up to the task, who wanted to do something effective. And I realized that being strategic, they tried to bring the change that we needed. And that's the current vice chancellor you are seeing now, in the person of Professor Joshua Levy.
Yeah, and James wanted to come in with
something.
something.
On that point, Mama V, you know, every effective leader is someone who is a strategic thinker. The person has a vision, is able to rally people around him or her towards that vision. Okay? In 1961, in South Korea, we have Park Chung-hee, who was a military officer who seized power through a coup d'etat. And at that time, we had then declared a republic, started constitutional governance led by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. What he did first was that, okay, Korea has come out of the war. I mean, it was a less developed country, per capita income of $80 per year. It was nothing to write home about. But because he was a strategic thinker, he decided to develop a 5-year development plan for South Korea. At the same level, in Ghana, Kwame Nkrumah realized that we were not going to be the country that we were at 61 in 20 years to come. We shouldn't remain at that level. So he developed a 7-year development plan. If you compare the two, there are similarities. Today, Korea is the 15th largest economy in the world. Okay? Within 18 years, that military general was able to transform Korea in such a manner that today that country is part of OECD. That country has all the elements of a well-developed economy. Ghana today, we're still struggling. Right? We're still struggling. So it's about leadership. You need to have a vision. And after the vision, you need to be able to seize the national movement and get the people behind you to pursue that vision. So Obama says we need what? Strong institutions, not strong men. But I believe we need both strong men and strong institutions. Okay. Come to the University of Professional Studies.
Let me bring it a bit closer home.
Okay.
I had the president whilst he was in London talking about the fact that you put people in places and they don't perform. Things go on, and I was just thinking, who takes the blame? And how can you say you put somebody somewhere and the person is not performing, or things are going on whilst the person is still at post? I mean, how does it work? Because if it was in a private institution, if you are not performing, it didn't matter that you have a contract. They would let you go. They would tell you you're not performing and we need somebody who can perform. Why can't we translate that same kind of, that's how you fix the problem in the public sector?
I think we don't have strategic leaders. We have leaders. We don't have strategic leaders. Strategic leaders must be innovative. They must make sure they empower the people. It's not a matter of just getting the people to follow you. They must buy into your vision. And how do you do that? You make sure that the tools are right. The skills are right.
But in the country where, it's sort of divided into NDC, NPP, if you're picking people in places and you have to think only from, a party politics point of view, how do you get the right people?
That is why it is anathema to go by rent-seeking, to go by patronage, because you will get shoddy work done because you are acting as a father figure, not so that if what you only do is that you provide for their needs. And it's not just a matter of providing for their needs. You providing for what, you make sure that the needs will go to develop, and they must look into the future. Anytime you're doing something, people must look into the future. And what happens when we see such results is that people are not looking into the future. We don't, when we don't have what we call public value creation, people will not buy into the vision of the leader. And it calls for strategic thinking, where people will act, where people will be influenced positively to go champion what vision is there for everybody.
Okay. And, you know, to end the discussion, and I want people to pick something out of that, something that they can carry and they can hold on to. So, James, and again, I guess it's the younger people that we can influence.
Yes.
But if you hear a young university student say, I want to go into politics, you know, because that's where I can quickly rise and make money, then that's a big worry. How do we correct that? Because that is, if that is one person's dream,
Yes.
and I spoke to one person who thought that way,
Yes.
that would be a lot of people's dream.
Yes.
Because the example, you said, we learn, we copy,
Yes.
and that's what we are learning.
It's exactly the same thing. In all the universities where you have student politics, you have SRC president. They have a large budget under them. And every year when one administration moves away, the other administration accuses them of corruption because they are learning from the bigger leaders at the national level. That's the problem we have. That's the problem we have. Now, on the point that the president was complaining that you put people in positions, they don't perform, and they undermine the system. Point is, as you said, if I put you in a position and you're not performing, naturally, logically, you're supposed to go away. I have to be able to exercise that leadership because good leaders are people who are ruthless. They believe in their vision and they take a decision without explaining to
But
anybody.
I guess for politicians,
But the
it
point
will
is that-
be, if I take him, who would I bring?
Exactly, because the point is the person got there not based on merit, but based on connection. There is some relationship. So if you remove the person, you're probably going to lose your next election. So that's the dilemma we have as a country, and that is why we think as a university that there's the need for a deliberate policy of developing the capacity of the current generation of leaders as well as the next generation of leaders. How do we do that? We need to invest in developing them, training them. We need to invest in creating the environment for them to share ideas with other people from other parts of the world, so that when they get into those positions, they know that, listen, you are there not for your own benefit, but for the benefit of your country, and the only way you can leave a legacy is to be able to implement policies, take strong decisions, so people know that when you leave, this is the legacy you're leaving. But when there are problems and you can't deal with them because you're scared of the next election, then there's a problem. You get a point. And the thing we need to do as young people is to understand that 20 years from now, this country is going to either move forward or stay where it is. And Dr. Mensah
Or get
Otabil,
worse, if you like.
Dr. Mensah Otabil always says that the only place where you can go away for 50 years and come back and see it the same way, same cocoa seller, same street and all of that, it's Ghana. Nothing will change. And if you compare the city of South Korea to the city of Accra, you see the disparity. But we have the same story. You get a point. But we as young people should now begin to understand that if we really want to leave a legacy for our children, then we need to deviate from what other people are doing.
Okay.
And learn and care about sacrifices for our country and for our generation.
Okay.
That's the only way we can move forward.
All right, Ms. Ofe, finally, and whilst you was talking about the SRC, it occurred to me that perhaps if we want to make significant changes, it could also start from the SRC, you know, the Student Representative Council, that thing that we've instituted in tertiary institutions where people think, oh, I can start a political career from here. What are you doing about it, really? Because sometimes they're not there because, you know, they think they can make a difference by leading the student positively, but they are thinking about national politics.
Yeah.
And they think they can better be recognized in such positions in the tertiary institutions.
If the environment is right, you will have things right with the right people. If the environment is wrong, the right people even can be there. But it's not going to work. I hear people talk of future leaders. If it's future leaders, what about now? What are you doing about now? You train the child the way he should go, And when he grows, he will live by that. And if they are SRC leaders, and I saw some of the people who just moved out of this place, and I knew them when they were students. You know, what have they done to our nation? What have they done now? And it's the same thing. It's a vicious cycle. And we are all perpetuating it. You know, something needs to be done.
Yeah.
And what should be done is strategic leadership.
Okay, that's exactly what we're starting on the show.
Yes.
And James, quickly want to say something?
Yeah, 30 seconds. I started by saying that there are some rare cases, exceptional cases of strong leadership or very good leadership. The University of Professional Studies is one of such cases. Look at the university or the institute as it then was 4 or 5 years ago. Very run-down institution, 2 buildings. Go there today and see what has been done.
I'll come and take a tour and see if I agree
I'll be
with what
very
you're
glad to move you around.
You're a public relations officer.
Oh,
you know.
You can ask your viewers.
And so
you can ask them.
Well, I am told that we're there sometime next week, so
yes.
figure it out.
Yes, you would love what you see.
Okay.
That is what leadership is about.
On Tuesday, I'll
strategic
spend the whole
plan,
day
5 years,
there.
and that's what
I'll
is
spend the
happening.
whole day there, and then I'll speak to a couple of students.
No problem. It's the only university that is building all those things from its
Hey,
own internal
James.
resources.
All right.
And let me tell you,
Thank
some
you.
of your students were there.
Yeah.
And some of your
the
colleagues
people here
were there.
were there,
And so the comparison can best be made.
Okay, well,
I'm
thank
looking
you
forward to
so
it.
much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And we're coming. Okay, so now I can say it. We're coming to you live from the University of Professional Studies, God
Accra.
willing, Accra. God willing, on Tuesday. We're building on this, whole leadership discussion, and we're doing it strategically from the campus. So I want to say thank you for your time, really, Mr. Samuel Biofe. He's a consulting director at the Center for Strategic Leadership at the University of Professional Studies, Accra. Okay, and James Afedo is Public Relations Officer at the university. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
We're talking, well, strategically, a lot more leadership issues. And my concern from the issue of the doctor who is alleged to, well, he's actually said it in his own words that he did, had an affair with a 16-year-old. If you're a parent, how do you really identify that your child is involved in something that you should be concerned about? That's one that is really, really on my heart. So I'm raising it as my banner today. So stay with us. I'll come and introduce my guest to you in a little bit.